Let's get started on this. Here we go. Okay guys, so I have a reference sketch here of what we're going to be trying to make. So you can see we have our guy here. He's going to be doing a bit of magic, and he's going to be making a circle of rocks with his magic. And we're going to have a rock wall here and some maybe rocks in the background, and kind of like a couple of objects here that's going to lead the eyes towards the subject. Big old sphere here, kind of a moon, you know, because we're in a different planet, or we're on a different planet. So that's what we're going for. So let's get to it. Now I'm going to start from the very beginning. So I'm going to be setting up the interface for Redshift. So let's just go up here to Redshift, and we can just click on this dotted grid to undock it. Now we can just hover over again over the dotted grid and just drag that up. We can dock that on the top. It gives us access to all our Redshift bits. Now we just need to drag this down because we don't need that much space in our materials panel. And now we need to get our Redshift render view. So let's do that now, and we can grab this little waffle menu and just click and drag so we can dock that over onto the right. Okay, so we have our layout set up. So what you can do is go to Window, and you can go to Customization and save layout as. Now I already have one set up, so I'm just going to hop into it. So the first thing we're going to look at is creating a height map for the block. We're going to create a block, and we're going to be using that block, that cube, or we'll call it a tile, to create our wall. And when I say our wall, I mean this one here. So this is going to be made up of a bunch of these, and we're going to have some detail that we're going to create using a height map. And we're going to create that height map with this application called JS Placement, which is really cool, and it's free. And the link is here. I'll put it in the description below as well. Just download it here. And what this allows you to do is, if I just go into this menu here, go to JS Placement 2, there's a bunch of different options you can try, like wire, which will generate a bunch of kind of lines and stuff. So go into JS Placement 2, and if we just click on this, it'll start generating a height map for us. And that looks pretty cool. So once we place this onto our cube, we'll be able to see this detail in our displacement that we're going to be generating on this cube. Right now I don't want as much of this fine detail, so I'm going to increase the sprite scaling up to about 90 or 89 will be fine. And you can see what that's doing. It's just kind of, it's like it's zooming in on what we saw previously. Okay. So that's okay, I suppose. I might just regenerate one because I don't really like it that much, to be honest. Okay, so I'll keep this one. So now let's just pop down to save height. And I'm going to save this into a folder that I've already created called textures. This is just my Cinema 4D scene that we're in at the moment, my reference, and the Illustrator file that I created it with. And inside a folder called textures, I'm just going to save this as is. You don't need to change the name, just save it as is. And now we can just close this down, and we can create a Redshift material. And let's open, well, we can apply it to our Redshift, or to our cube, and we can open that up now. Okay, so here we have our Redshift material node, and this is our output node. So we want to get in the height map that we just created. So I'm going to find that. It's in the textures folder. And I'm just going to drag this up into the node editor. Just say no to that. Okay, or the shader graph as it's called. Again, this is my first tutorial in Redshift, so and it's also, I'm quite a noob in Redshift as well, so expect a lot of mistakes in this tutorial, but we're all learning together, I suppose, so that's good. So now that we have this texture node in here, we can just basically grab the little out color circle here and bring this over to the output, this little blue kind of area of the output node, and plug this into the displacement channel. And now we can just, I suppose, just move it up there. It doesn't really matter where it is, to be honest. And oh wait, we've done something wrong. Now, as I said, I am a noob in Redshift, so I'm plugging that into the output, but what I need to do is actually find a displacement node, and you have to be able to spell as well. If you can't spell, this isn't going to work. So it's going to be the second one that we're going to be grabbing. This is a RS displacement node, and what we need to do is get the out color and plug that into the RS displacement node's texture map channel, and then we can plug the RS displacement into the output node, into the displacement channel of the output node. So now we have this set up, it should work. And by work I mean we should get some displacement on our cube. Now we're not going to get it straight away because there's something we haven't done yet. So if I hit play there, you're not going to see any displacement. We need to add a Redshift Object Tab onto our cube. So just right click on your cube, go to Redshift Tags and grab a Redshift Object Tag. Now if we go into the Geometry tab of this, we can click on Override, and then we'll be able to change the settings here. We can turn on displacement. Now you can see that we're getting some displacement. We're not getting a lot, so we can go into our cube and we can bring up the segments on the Y and the Z up to about 200. And we need to go back into the Redshift object and we need to bring up the maximum displacement. So I'm going to go for maybe 10 and 10 on the displacement scale as well. So now we are getting some noticeable displacement on our cube. Let's grab an area light. And by the way, if you want to grab any other light, you just hold down your mouse click and then that'll pop up there. That's probably obvious enough. So we got our area light. We need to rotate this 180 degrees. Hit R on your keyboard and let's just rotate this around 180 degrees. Let's bring that up. Actually, we don't need to go 180. We just need to kind of go to something like that value. So it's going to be pointing down at our cube. I hit spacebar to switch back to the move tool, and I want to switch to world coordinates. I'm going to hit W on my keyboard and we can just drag that up. We can scale this up as well. So now if I zoom in, we're getting a bit of bring that over a bit. We're getting a nice bit of lighting on our cube, so we can see the displacement more clearly. Okay, so let's go back into, what is this madness that's going on here? Look, so what's happening is I'm using a screen recorder, and whenever I do so, it just seems to cause a few issues on my computer, which is kind of annoying. But it is what it is. Okay. So that's fixed. So now we can have a look at this. Let's open up our Redshift Material, and I want to change the roughness of the reflection, but I'm not going to be going down to reflection and then changing the roughness here. I want to use this texture that we created in JS Placement, this one here, to control the roughness with the texture node here. So to do that, we just need to grab this out color circle again, and we're going to plug this into the Redshift Material node, And we can go down here and we can go to reflection roughness. Just click on that. And we might not see any changes straight away for some reason. I don't know what it is. I think it's some kind of glitch. But I find that if I disconnect this and then just plug that back in, then it actually works. So you can see if I undo that and redo that, you can see the difference that, oh, yeah, sorry, I meant to undo this and redo that. So if I plug that out, you see we're getting some harsh, a very sharp edge along the reflection of the light. Plug that back in, and now we're getting some nice rough kind of edges on the reflections. I also want to go back into the Redshift Material node and change the color of this to some kind of a dark blue color. Something like this. And I'm going to scroll down and go to the reflection color and change this to a blue, but not as dark, we'll say. Maybe something like that. Now, the reflection is still looking kind of strange, so, you know, I suppose you could say it's looking okay. I mean, we are just going to be tiling this, and you probably won't notice it as much. But what we can do to improve the look of the reflection is we can use a color correction node. So if I just type in color, and let's just make this bigger. We'll go for color correction. And I probably spelt it wrong again, did I? Color, there we go. Okay, color correct, not color correction. Let's drag this into the shader graph, and we can now, instead of just plugging the texture node directly into the roughness channel of the Redshift material, we can first plug it into the input of this color correct. And let's just grab both of these and move them over a little bit so we have a bit of space for this. And then we can plug the out color into the Redshift Materials reflection roughness node. Now if we just make this a bit smaller and we select the Redshift color correct, if we just kind of slide this contrast all the way down, you can see that that's just completely changed the look of our reflections. So if I undo that, redo that, you can see that we're getting a huge difference there on that. You can mess with the gamma as well, but contrast has given us a much more softer kind of a reflection that's more evenly spread out on our object. Cool. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is use a matrix object so that we can clone a load of these without slowing down render times too much. So let's go up here to this fancy new button, and we can go and grab matrix object. If we right click on this, go down to Redshift tags and add a Redshift Object Tag to it, go back into the matrix object by clicking on it, and now we have a new tab called the Redshift Object Tab, and we can set the mode of the particles here to be custom objects, and then we're able to drag this cube that we have created down into the field here. And now you can see that this is cloning one of these cubes at each of the matrices. So we have a lot in there now, so we can reduce the amount. Just go into the matrix object, go into the object tab, and then we can set the mode to honeycomb array. We can change the orientation to X, and we can bring down the size width and the size height as well, so that they're all kind of touching each other. Even intersecting is fine. And if we zoom in now, you can see that we've got this tiled wall just using the cube that we have created. and it has the displacement on it and all of that good stuff. So that's cool. We need to move our light back a bit. So let's grab that. Hit W on your keyboard to go back to the, what's it called? I think it's object. Yeah, object coordinate system. And then if we just move this back, and we can scale that up a good bit as well. Move it over a little bit. Not necessary to move it over. And there we have, I suppose, the start of this wall. Remember, this is what we're going for. This is the wall we're going for, this wall here. So what we can do to kind of make this look a bit more random is use a random effector. If we go up again to the fancy button, and we can hold down, now again, see, this is the madness that's going on with my screen recorder messing with my computer, so just ignore this. This won't be happening for you. But you can see what I'm forced to do to see everything. So if we click on this and grab a random effector, and now we need to, well, we should have clicked on our matrix object before we grabbed the random effector. But what we can do now, because we didn't do that, is go into the Effectors tab of the matrix object and just drag the random effector down into it. We wouldn't have had to do that step if we had the matrix object selected before we grabbed the random effector. So now you can see that's randomizing the position. If I just go into it here, go into the parameter, it's randomizing the position of each of these cubes that we're cloning. We can also randomize the scale if we want. Turn on uniform scale. We can go to like minus 0.50 or something like that. That'll randomize the scale. So I'm not going to randomize the scale. I'm just going to randomize the position. And the default 50-50-50 is actually pretty good at the moment. Kind of liking it. Maybe I'll mess around with the X a bit. So maybe something like that. Something like that. Maybe less randomization on the Y, so that we're going to get that kind of bumpy top part that I'm going for in the wall, in the reference sketch, kind of like that. Yeah, so something like that, maybe along the top looks good. And I suppose we need to increase the amount of clones we have. So if we go back into the object, go into the matrix object, go into the object tab, and we can increase the count width on that as well. And that's kind of the wall. So I suppose what we can do now, well, let's just have a look. We can create a floor. So the next thing we'll do is create a floor, and the floor is just going to be a duplicate of what we've created with the wall. So if I just rename this matrix object to main wall, because that's what it is, I suppose, and this random object will be called wall random. And now if we grab this main wall matrix object and hold down Control, hover over one of the axis handles and just click and drag. Now we have another one. If we rotate this so that it is how a floor should be, rotate it 90 degrees, let's move it down and over a little bit, something like that. Now we have a wall, we have a floor, and it's looking pretty sweet, to be honest, because Redshift is pretty damn cool. Now we have our wall and our floor, so I suppose we could look at doing this back wall. And again, it's just going to be a duplicate of, you know, the matrix object that we've used for the main wall. So let's rename this one first of all to floor. and we're going to be using a different random effector for this floor. We can just grab the one that we have created, duplicate it, hold down Control and click and drag to duplicate, and then we can call this floor random and get rid of that one. And we need to go into the floor matrix object, go into the effectors tab, which is currently referencing the wall random effector. We don't want it to do that. We want it to reference its own separate random effector. So let's drag that down. So now it's going to be referencing the floor random. Now we're going to be able to change the properties of the floor random effector. I should probably give it a different name. I'll just call it the floor random effector, and we'll be able to edit or change the parameters of this separately to the to the wall random effector. So I'm going to stop saying random now for a while, and I'm going to select rotation on this. And now if I just kind of mess around with that a little bit, see what it looks like. So I think that looks kind of cool, maybe a bit less. And a little bit on this as well, possibly. Maybe, yeah, something like that could be good. Something like that. Maybe a little bit of this, if I could make it look nice. Possibly something like that, maybe less again. So I'm just playing with the values here, and Redshift makes this super fun because you can actually see this pretty much live updating itself. But it is easy to just get hooked on changing the parameters because it's like it looks so nice as it's changing. I'm going to leave it at that anyway. Something like so I didn't really change much of the rotation randomness. Scale is already selected, but there's no value set. It's set to 0. So we'll try something like minus 0.25 on that. Maybe go even more. We'll go minus 0.5. Yeah, possibly. Kind of cool. Minus 0.75. Try. Yeah, I don't know if I like it or not. I'll go back to minus 0.5 and see. No, back to minus 0.75. And I'm going to leave it like that for now. I'm going to mess around with the rotation again. Okay, so that's it. That's enough messing with the floor. Now we're going to get something for the background. So again, you said it, well, you guessed it, it's a duplicate again of the matrix object. So we're going to grab the floor matrix object, doesn't really matter, it could be the main wall matrix object. Hold down Control, just drag that up and duplicate it. I'm going to call this back rocks wall, and we're gonna be duplicating this random object, floor random object, dragging that up, holding down Control to do so, and this is just going to be called back wall random. Okay, so now we have our back wall random. Again, we have to make sure that the back rocks wall matrix object is referencing the correct effector. So we just need to drag the back wall random effector down into the effectors tab of the back rocks wall matrix object. So now if let's grab this. Where is it? Oh, no, ignore me. I'm grabbing the random effector. I'm trying to move that. So now we have the back rocks wall matrix object. It probably would have made more sense duplicate I'm going to delete that and duplicate the main wall matrix object. That'll make a lot more sense. And then if I just go into the Effectors tab, delete off the wall random effector, drag in the back wall random effector, and then we're good to go on that. So now let's rename this to back wall. And now it'll just easier to set this up. We can drag it over, hit R on our keyboards, and rotate this 90 degrees. Hold down Shift to rotate in increments of 10 degrees, by the way. It just makes it a lot easier. And now we have our back wall. So, get back, you back wall. Okay, so we're going to have to do something about the positioning of our light so it's not, you know, casting a shadow over that. Might as well just do that now. And we'll move it over as well. And we can rotate it like that, kind of face into this wall a bit more. Let's move this back wall random or back wall matrix object back a bit more, kind of like that. And then I want to jump back to the camera angle I was just at. I haven't set up a camera yet, so what I can do is hold down Control Shift and just kind of hit Z a couple of times on my keyboard until it's just going to undo each of the camera moves that I just did. So I'll be able to hop back into the camera view that I was just at a second ago. There it is. Okay, so now let's just mess around with the back wall random effector and jump into the parameter tab, and then we can kind of mix this up a bit more. So that could be kind of cool. That could be kind of cool as well. Let's increase the randomness along the Y. Maybe not that much. And we can go into the back wall matrix object, into the object tab. We can bring down the height, the count height, or maybe up a little bit. And we can bring down the count width because we don't need that much width because we're just going off the shot there. Back into the back wall random, or no, we'll go back into the back wall matrix object, back into the object tab, and just increase the size height on that to something like that. And I'm going to reduce the count height, maybe, no, I'm leaving it as is, ignore me. And I'm going to just drag this down along the Y. I might even rotate it a little bit so it's kind of going up at an angle like that. That could be interesting. And I'm just going to have a look again at my reference image. Now in my reference image it doesn't do that. It just goes straight along. So it's bumpy obviously. We might need to make it more bumpy. So if we go back into the random effector that's controlling this, we can make this more bumpy. We just need to increase the count height to fill in those gaps. Let's set the mode here to endpoint and then increase that. Oh no, maybe we need to go back to per step. And yeah, so the randomness along the y-axis is giving us too many gaps. So let's just reduce that. Let's just zero out all the positioning of the randomness actually in the back wall random. We'll drag this back wall matrix object down. Yeah, so something like that is kind of what I'm going for, but I don't need this many of them, so I do need to reduce the count height. Maybe increase the count width. Something like that. I don't want as many gaps though, so back into the back wall random, and maybe just mess around with the Z, I suppose it would be. So I'm not getting as many gaps. So something like that is not bad, I suppose. Move that over. Yeah. Okay. So we'll keep it like that for now. And next we are going to be bringing in our guy, the character. So let's do that now. I'm just going to move this away because it's annoying me. Okay, so let's just do a Control S to save what we have done so far. Because my computer is definitely just, when I'm recording my screen, it could just freeze at any time. So definitely need to be saving. So let's go to File and Merge Project, and I'm going to go into this Mixamo folder that I have with all my Mixamo downloads, and I'm going to download or bring in this Waving guy. This is the guy who's going to give us. His initial pose is just kind of this, so you'll be able to download him from the description below as well, and click OK on that. Say no to the pop-up there, and now let's see if we need to group him first of all. Let's grab his joints and his geometry, hold down Alt and hit G, and then we can just call this guy. Let's hop into our top view here, just middle mouse click in the viewport and then middle mouse click in the top view, and then we can just drag him over. There he is there, showing up there. And we can ground him as well. If we just go into our front view, bring him down. We're going to have to go back into perspective and zoom right in on his feet so that we can make sure that he is on the ground. So need to rotate him. No, we're not going to rotate him at all. He's not perfectly on the ground because I've altered the randomness of the rotation of the floor matrix object. So you can see that here. So if we wanted to fix that, we'd have to zero that out so that he'd be able to stand on a flat ground. But as we're going to have the camera quite far away, I think I just might leave it as is, and we might fix it later on. I want to hop back into my camera view that I was just at. I really do need to set up a camera. That would save me having to do this Control Shift Z to get back into the camera position I was just in. I think that was it. Something like that was it, yeah. And now we can apply a Redshift material to this guy as well. We can actually just use the same material. No, we shouldn't actually, because it has displacement on it and all that other stuff. So let's just go to Redshift Materials, create a new material, and we can open that up. Let's just rename it to Guy, and this one we can call, I suppose, Tiles, because we're using it for all our tiles that we're creating. Let's open up the Guy shader graph and find our nodes. There they are. So I'm just moving around this using the same controls you use to navigate around in your viewport in Cinema 4D. So for this guy, we're just going to have him kind of a similar color. We can even use the eyedropper tool. Just get a similar color for the guy, maybe a little bit lighter. And we can turn down reflection for this guy. Well, we'll leave it as is for now and we'll apply it to him and see what it looks like. We need to apply it to his geometry actually, not to the node, or not to the null. So just click, drag, hover over the existing material and release, and that'll overwrite the existing one. So you can see he's got his material on him. He's a bit dark, so we might just brighten him up a bit. And we'll leave it at that for now. Okay, so else do we have to do? Let's get our reference object, or reference sketch, and we need a couple, well, we need our big circular kind of magic circle rock thingy that he's doing. So he's doing his magic and he's kind of making a bunch of rocks levitate. So again, we're going to be using a duplicate of, I suppose we can just get the floor matrix object, hold down control, click and drag that up, and this is going to be the magic rocks. And again, well, this might not even need an effector at the moment, so we can go into the effectors tab of it and just delete off the floor random effector for now. Now if we drag this up, you can see that we just have a duplicate of the floor without any randomization on it, but we want to change the, go into the object tab of this magic rocks matrix object, and we want to set the mode to radial. Now if we increase the radius on that, so we don't have the best view, let's just move around so we get a better view, I suppose. And we can increase the radius on that, increase the count. We can also say to ourselves, look, maybe these rocks are too big and we want to use a smaller cube, because currently we're using this cube to reference all of, all of our matrix objects are referenced in this cube. So maybe we want to use a smaller cube for this magic rocks matrix object. We can duplicate this cube. Let's just call it magic rocks cube. And we can say that we want it to be smaller, so we'll just scale that down. And now we can tell the magic rocks matrix object to reference, if we go into the Redshift Object Tab of it, tell it to reference not this cube object, not this, but instead this. So now all our rocks are going to be smaller, and we can also just scale that down even more as well if we want. So something like that. And we can just move this over as well. I'm going to do my Control Shift Z to undo my camera movements again. So I'm going to hop back into where I was at a minute ago. And again, setting up a camera is just the quicker way to do this, by the way. I think I've already gone past where I was. So now I'm doing Control Shift Y. See how inefficient this is. Okay, so let's move this back, this magic rocks matrix object. Let's just grab our move tool and move that back. We might need to rotate it as well so you can kind of see it a little bit better. Maybe even this way as well, so it's kind of pointing down towards our guy. And I'm going to move our guy forwards a bit as well, just kind of so he's a bit closer to the camera. Actually no, I'm going to leave that as is, because we're going to be moving everything around in a minute anyway to closer match up with our reference sketch, because right now it's, it's not matching up at all. So we're going to spend a bit of time trying to get that a bit closer once we have all of our assets in our scene. Do a Control S to save that as well. And the last, well, I suppose it's not the last part. We need our big giant sphere up in the sky. We need to put in some objects here that are going to look like rocks or something. But we're not going to be using a clone of the, don't worry, we're not going to be using a clone again. We're going to just use a landscape object, or a couple of them. So we can do that now. Let's create a landscape object. And we can position this so that it's just going to be very close to our camera, I suppose, once we eventually get around to setting that up. We're going to get there eventually, setting up the camera, I mean. And we can increase the height of this. You can do that by just going into the Object tab with the landscape object selected and increasing the height here, or I'm just going to use this yellow circle to do it. I'm going to scale it down altogether, bring it back a bit, so we can increase the segments of this up to maybe 400. See what that looks like. So that looks a lot smoother. And let's apply the, let's just duplicate this tiles material, and we can call this mountain. So it'll be the exact same color as our tiles, except it's not going to be using any of this stuff that we have set up for our tiles. So get rid of all that. It's just going to be sharing the same color. And reflection, it's not going to have any. So you can turn down the weight of the reflection right down to 0. And now we can apply this to our landscape object. So now you can see it's looking kind of blue. We might need to get a bit of reflection on it, just so it doesn't look as kind of... we probably won't need to, actually, because we are going to be setting up depth of field. I mean, these two landscape objects I'm going to have on either side, they're just going to serve as a foreground that I'm going to be able to blur, just so we'll get a nice kind of foreground blurred depth of field going on. The same with the background wall. We're not going to see it very much or very well. It's just going to be blurred with the depth of field, hopefully. Anyway, that's the plan. I might increase the scale of my magic rocks cube up a bit. Something like that looks a bit more kind of magical, I suppose. And what else are we doing? We need our sphere as well. Do you know what we didn't do yet? What we should do now, can do a Control S on that, is create the Redshift environment. So if you just go up to this little button here, grab a Redshift environment. It's not going to do anything yet. But if we go into our Redshift area light, go into the volume tab and set the contribution scale to 0.001, now we get some cool, environment, I suppose. I mean, we're getting some nice scattering of our light particles. I don't know if that's what's going on, but all I know is that it is cool and it looks great, and it just really, God bless you, Redshift. I mean, it's such a cool render engine, and I'm not saying anything bad against Octane, I just don't know how to use it. And I barely know how to use Redshift. This is all just me this is the first scene that I've really played with, and I'm just loving it so far. So if you guys are enjoying this tutorial and learning something from it, please do hit that like button and subscribe, because it really helps me out a lot. But I just moved over my light there a little bit, just so we're kind of getting it over in the corner of our scene. Now I want to change the render settings, like the width and height of this image. So if we go into our render settings, which is here, we can change the dimensions of this render to be square, I suppose. If you're going to be posting this on Instagram, we could go 1280 by 1280, and then we're going to get a square, which you could say that looks a bit cooler. Well, it actually doesn't look as cool as this widescreen render at the moment, but if we go back to the 1280 by 1280, we can move around our assets just so it's looking a bit cooler, and maybe reframe the scene, put in a camera and all that, but we'll get to that eventually. At the same time, we're going to be referencing the sketch, which is square, so I suppose if we're going to remain true to the sketch, we should make it square. And also, we're not going to have space for our sphere otherwise. We need another landscape object. Let's grab our move tool, hold down control, hover over the axis handle, just drag that over. And we don't really need to change the look of this because we're only seeing one side of it. So we'll leave it as is for now. If you do, you can just mess around with the seed. Yeah, I kind of like that it's higher, just by Whenever I mess around with the seed, I tend to like it. So anyway, seed has been messed around with. And we're kind of getting a lot closer to the... Where's my sketch, Yoki Bob? Did I just close it by accident or what? Or is my computer just closing stuff now? It's moved up. It's leveling up. It's first of all, it's just making Cinema 4D not work. Now it's just closing stuff. I might have closed it by accident. Anyway, we're getting places with this. So we need to grab a giant sphere. Well, a sphere and make it giant. Let's move it over here, scale that up. Let's apply the same mountain material to the sphere that we use on our mountain, and we can increase the segments of this up to maybe 60. See what that looks like. We might have to go more segments if we make it bigger. I'm going to hop into my top view and just move this back, all the way back, a good bit back. And maybe back more. And back into perspective, and then just drag that up. So it's just kind of up there, I suppose. And yeah, it's kind of off in the distance. We might have to bring it closer to the camera to actually be able to see it a bit better. Or we could move the light back. If we just go into our top view, move the light back, we could, you know, maybe that might look a bit better. We'll see. We might move it back again. We'll see. Yeah, I actually don't like it straight away after we moved it. It's much better there. We'll do something with our sphere in a minute. Okay, so let's just start tidying stuff up and kind of getting things a bit closer to the reference sketch. So I need to move up the magic rocks. Move those up. And I'm going to rotate those as well, ever so slightly, around the X. And I'm going to go and grab a step effector as well for these, just to make them a bit more interesting. And I want the parameters to be affecting scale. We can go to set this. Let's just make sure that uniform scale is already selected. We can go to -0.5 maybe. We can always increase the size of our magic rocks cube. So if we just scale that up till you're happy with it. We can also mess around with the rotation parameters on the step effector. So I'm just going to try and make this look cool. You could argue that looks cool. Something like that. And I want to rotate it as well, just because, you know, looks like the step kind of ends here. The smallest part is here and it goes around, and this is the biggest one. So I'm just going to rotate that so that you can't see the biggest part meeting the smallest part. I'm not going to be making any sense to any of you who don't know what a step effector does, but you can probably make sense of it just by the little icon there. And what's going on here, of course. I might scale up this. No, I'll leave it as is, because I think we're going to be zooming in a little bit anyway. So let's finally just create the Redshift camera. Here it is here, standard, or you can grab it up here. So I'll make it active, and I'm going to just kind of zoom in a little bit. And just try and get a bit closer to this reference here. Don't have to go too crazy on being like perfectly exact with it, but something might look a little bit cooler. So something like that possibly could work. Yeah. Go for something like that. Maybe we'll center our guy a little bit more. or not. And we'll move the light as well. This area light, we'll just kind of move it over and up a little bit. Maybe just scale the whole thing up a little bit more. Don't want to go too crazy. Maybe I'll go back down again. Hop into render settings and just change the renderer to Redshift as well. That'll be good. You can see that's making a big difference to the scene really. We had it on standard there for ages. So next we need to fix this back wall as well, because it's not really looking great. I want to move it up so that it's kind of, you know, at least it's going to be meeting with this wall. So we'll bring that up, something like that. And there are a lot of gaps in it. You can't really see them, to be honest, so I might just leave it as is. Still not really just delighted with the camera angle, to be honest, at the moment. I'm just gonna maybe mess around with it a little bit more. A bit closer to the ground, possibly. Zoom in a bit. Yeah, I don't know. Possibly that's better. I mean, yeah, kind of like that a bit more than the previous one. I'm going to do something with this giant sphere. I'm going to hop into my top view. Now I don't want the view to be moving around here, so I'm going to lock. Let's see, we can just set, yeah, we'll just lock the camera, and then we can hop into the top view, and then that's going to remain in the same view. So we can move the sphere back a good bit, and we can go back into our four-way view, and I'm going to hit Alt and H to, now we can't do that because this camera isn't protected and it's going to be moving around if we do that. So to just do a Control Shift Z to undo that move and that camera move, let's right click on the RS camera and grab a protection tag. Now we can do that again, four-way view, and then if we hit Alt and H, it'll frame everything and we can see what we're doing. And it's not going to move around this activated camera. Excuse me. So let's move this back a bit and we'll scale it up a lot. Maybe not that much. Move it forward a little bit so we can actually see it. And maybe it's too big. I'll scale that down a bit again. Move it forward again. And then I'll move it up. Or down. Well, where is it in our... It's kind of in the middle there, isn't it? But if it doesn't look good, obviously I'm not going to leave it there. So I'll put it back up in the middle. Yeah, I kind of like it kind of up. Very closer. I'm going to leave it there. I don't know if I like it there, to be honest, but I'm leaving it there. And we need to fix these landscape objects that we created earlier. So let's hop into perspective and we can deactivate this camera. And we can have a look at these landscape objects. So let's just get these into our shot first of all. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna have to move the camera again because, you know, I'm gonna unlock the camera up here so that it's gonna update in the render view, because I want to see more of this, and it's kind of, maybe I could just bring that closer to our guy instead of having to move the camera again. Yeah, that could work. Looks kind of cool. Okay, so I'll leave that like that. Deactivate my camera again. Now I want to go back in and make sure to lock this lock the camera so that we're not going to be getting changes in our render view. And let's grab the landscape object again and see if we can position this to somewhere where we can like, I suppose, its position. So maybe something like that could do it. And then the other landscape object will do the same, just kind of position this somewhere where it doesn't look terrible, I suppose. Would be good. Something like that will do it. Meh. Something kind of like that is maybe a little bit better. We could as well go into our content browser and search for a plant or something. Wonder will a plant do it? Yeah, plants. They got plants. They got loads of plants. Look at all these plants. And we can grab, I don't know, something that looks kind of spiky or something. Possibly this one. This one? We'll grab this one. And where is it first of all? It's a yucca. It's called a yucca. Okay, so we got a yucca. Let's bring this into our scene and just kind of maneuver this somewhere that looks nice. And that looks kind of cool, I suppose. Push it over a bit. Or not that way, actually. Kind of that way. So it's just going to be behind the landscape. It actually just looks out of place, to be honest. I don't know if I'll keep it. Possibly something like that. It's just kind of hidden, sticking out slightly, so it doesn't look intentionally placed. I suppose I'll leave it be for now. And that is kind of our scene set up, I suppose. So what we need to do now is, well, we'll activate our camera, and well, it doesn't matter, but we'll go into the camera tag here, the Redshift camera tag, and we'll go into the Bokeh tab and click on override, click on enabled, and we're just going to get some nice depth of field. Let's set this to focus distance, and let's bring this circle of confusion radius, I believe it's called, up, and we'll bring up the power as well. Not too much. We'll go back into our Redshift camera, go into the object tag, or tab I mean, and then click on this focus object, this little arrow here, and then we can just click directly on our guy. That'll focus on our guy. Back into the Redshift camera tag then, and we can just kind of maybe reduce the power a little bit on that. Okay, so I don't really know if that's going to be suitable settings. It looks like it's fairly well focused on our guy, and everything else is blurred out nicely, but not too much. Let's have a look. See, I'll deactivate my camera, and we could move over this magic rocks, move it over a little bit so that it's more centered to our guy. So I'm just going to try to move this over ever so slightly. Now this is kind of out of focus, whereas, yeah, no, it's better actually moved over. So I'm going to move it back again. And now what we can do is just stop this from updating, this render view, and we can go to our render settings, and we can go to, well, we'll save it, and we're going to save, we're not going to be saving a multipass image, we're just going to be saving the image as a PNG. And let's pick a location for this. So I want to save it here somewhere. Yeah, I suppose exactly there, so I'll just copy that and I'll paste that in there. We'll call this render, and we don't need alpha channel or anything like that. Output 1280 by 1280 is fine for now, so we can see what we're doing. Let's just see what we get with this. Okay, so let's let's do a render to picture viewer and see what this is looking like. Yeah, I might make this a bit bigger, or just bring it up a little bit along the Y. Get my magic rocks. I'm gonna go and change this to world coordinate mode, or world coordinate system, or whatever you might call it. Bring that up. Make sure you hit play so we can see what we're doing. I'm going to hit R on my keyboard and rotate this a little bit towards our guy a bit more. Okay, so I mean, you know, we strayed a bit from the sketch. You must say, it's fair to say we definitely strayed. Oh, we almost forgot the halo. Oh, that would have been just terrible if we didn't put in the halo. So let's grab a Taurus and let's just, so see this little tiny orange circle? I'm not really sure if you guys can see it. I mean, we could just scale down the pipe radius here, but I do like my orange circles. I like these orange circles. That's obviously the radius of the whole thing. Pipe radius is very hard to see, but I have got these eagle eyes on me. It allows me to see all the orange circles in Cinema 4D. So that is a huge halo. That's a big halo. It's more like a Guinness Book of Records kind of hula hoop. But is it cool? I don't know. I don't think it is, to be honest. It looks mental. Let's create a material for it first of all. And we can call this halo. I don't know if we... Oh yeah, we have been naming our materials. We're very good. And let's find this. We'll go to the material node. And we can go to... Oh, I was already in it. Go to the overall tab. And we can just choose the color. So let's just minimize this and pick a color for our halo. We need to apply it to the halo first. So let's do that so we can see the happenings happening. Change this to yellow. And bring up the emission weight as well. Okay. Maybe just kind of bring down the, or bring up the saturation on the yellow bit. Okay, so no, don't like the halo huge. I was like, you know, I'm gonna stray from the sketch even more and see if what a huge halo looks like, but it looks rubbish, obviously. So we'll scale that down. I say obviously, but actually it's not obvious at all because, you know, somebody might love a massive halo. Scale that down a bit more, but not too much. I'll deactivate my camera and zoom in a bit. Let's have a look at this. Oh, my camera wasn't locked. So I'll lock. Hey, it is locked. Now it's locked. Okay. Now I'm going to rotate this a little bit around the X. And it looks like it still needs to be scaled down as well. I'm going to do that. Yeah, something like that. Bring it down a little bit along the Y. Nah, leaving it up. Okay. Cool. So now what we can do is, well, we did render out something already, which was this. And we are getting a bit of noise and stuff. So what we can do is we can go into our render settings and we can go to Redshift and we can turn on Denoising and we can set the bucket quality to high as well. Let's stop the previews here, so just turn that off. Let's go into advanced, go to global illumination. We can bring the number of bounces up to about maybe 15 and let's go to output and we'll say, well, we'll leave it at 1280 by 1280. We'll just see what that looks like first of all. Yeah, I'm going to overwrite that. So let's just study the differences while that's rendering. So hopefully we won't be too distracted by the halo popping in. But look, let's focus in on the background here. See the background? See all that noise? No, you probably can't see it, but it is there. You'll see it on your own machines. It's just killing all that noise since we turned on the denoiser. And oh yeah, we rotated that. We're getting a bit of more. We're getting more visibility of the tiles here in our magic bricks since we rotated it, so that's kind of cool. Happy accident there. And the depth of field is doing a wonderful job of blurring out the background and the foreground for us. So all in all, I'm really happy with that. We could do a render 1920 by 1080 if you wanted to, or I mean 1920 by 1920. Might as well. Why not? 1920 by 1920. So I'm going to do a Control S to save, and I'm going to go back into my render picture viewer here, stop this render, and we're going to render out this 1920 by 1921. And that is obviously going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take a few minutes anyway. So once this is finished rendering, we'll pop back in for bringing this into Photoshop. Okay, so that has finished rendering, and I don't know if we're going to be able to see much of a difference between because of the size, I suppose, but there's a lot more noise in this one, or in the first one, no, this one, than there is in this one, since we turned on denoising. So it's looking pretty good. Depth of field looks very well, and everything's looking nice. So let's just go to find this in the File Explorer, just like that, and we can open this up in Photoshop. So I'm going to open up Photoshop and drag in the render that we just did. Now I'm by no means a Photoshop expert or anything like that, but a few of the settings here we can make this look a little bit better. So I'm just unlocking the layer, and we're going to go and we'll change this to a smart object. And then, do you know what, we don't even need to do that, just go to adjustments and let's go for levels first. We can try the presets to see if any of them look good. I think I like this one. Let's try this one. I think I like that one as well. So I'm going to stick with that for the levels. Back into adjustments then, and we can go for curves. And again, I'm preset mad in Photoshop. I'll try the increase contrast. Not sure if I like that very much. Try medium. It's a bit better. And then back into adjustments, we'll try some vibrance. No. You know what, when we take a little bit of it out, it's kind of nice. But again, this is up to you, if you like it with or without. I'm going to go a little bit without, or go to a minus value on the vibrance. See what the saturation does for us. It's kind of cool, kind of more black and whitey, I feel like. So I might do it a little. Yeah, it is nice with color as well. I mean, it's all a matter of taste when it comes to these adjustments. Brightness, no, leave that alone. And exposure, we'll just see if this, no, leave that alone. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to leave it there, guys.